All right, we have got so much breaking news in the trial of Zoe Rosenberg. It's week 4, day 14 in the chicken rescue trial, and we've got tons of analysis, but I want to go straight out to the courthouse and Cassie King. She is the communications lead for Direct Action Everywhere. Cassie, it's fair to say, is the prosecution's case getting a little weird? Because they subpoenaed you and then forced you to stay outside the courtroom. And then, I don't know what it was, 1 day, 2 days later, they said, never mind, you're not subpoenaed anymore, which is why we're able to talk to you. And you're back being the communications lead for Direct Action Everywhere.
Yes, thankfully, I am now able to do my work and advocacy. I was not able to be in the courtroom for the proceedings on Monday or Tuesday. I feel a little out of the loop, but today...
You're going to have to put your phone closer to your face. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I feel a little bit out of the loop because I was not able to be in the courtroom on Monday and Tuesday because of this subpoena. But Tuesday, they withdrew the subpoena for me. So I'm no longer on their witness list. I'm no longer sequestered. And I've been able to be in the courtroom for the morning proceedings today. And I'll be going back in at 1:30. So I'm grateful that they realized they didn't, have any reason to call me. I was not even at the rescue that Zoe is on trial for right now. So it is a confusing situation. I'm glad that the attorneys kept bringing this up and asking for some kind of offer of proof for why I needed to be a witness. And I think they dropped me because they couldn't make a good enough one.
And here we are, we're doing, what normally would take millions of dollars. It's we have some technical problems every so often, but if you just shout right into the phone close up, my question to you is, do you think it was a political move to silence you, to keep from getting publications to cover this? Like, what's really amazing is that when the trial's opening statement began, there were all these major stories, and they referred to this case as the chicken rescue case, which is a victory for animal rights in and of itself, as opposed to, girl steals chickens. It's the chicken rescue case. Do you think the prosecution and the powers that be are worried that the script is being flipped?
Well, yeah, I think we know that they don't want this to be as public as we would like it to be. We've had multiple media outlets request access to film or take photos of the trial. And of course, the defense wants that to happen, but the prosecution does not. And so, yeah, of course, we're here in the interest of transparency. We want to get the word out, and they don't feel the same. I don't know what their entire motivations were, but I certainly think that at least part of it was, hey, wouldn't it be great if Cassie wouldn't be able to be in the courtroom and wouldn't be able to spread the word and literally do her job and communicate about this?
I want to thank you. It is kind of hard to hear you. We're going to go. Thank you, though, for taking the time. We're going to go to Matthew Zerbel, who's also at the courthouse. Matthew, you were in court today. What happened?
Hi, Jane. Yeah, in court today, we had finishing up testimony from Arvizo, looking over the security footage again. Matthew Hobson really likes going over all of the security footage as long as he can, is my opinion. And then we had Cross, so Kevin Little on Zoe's side, asked him questions primarily focused on whether or not he or the Petaluma Police Department, who he was working with at the time, had ever investigated animal cruelty, or whether animal cruelty ever came up in his investigation when he was at the slaughterhouse immediately following the rescue. And he had not. So that was the majority of the discussion on Cross. Hobson on redirect.
Yeah, and let us know, people don't know who Hobson is. That's the prosecutor. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's, I think, the lead prosecutor on the prosecution side. So he's the one who brought him in. And so, yeah, he was asking more about that, and also, once again, brought up Zoe's, or DxE's in this case, post about Zoe talking about having done the rescue. It seems like his idea is that this is more of a social media publicity stunt, and he also just wants to bring in as many things from on social media or unrelated statements as he can. Previously, he had tried to subpoena Cassie, and the reason they had done that they listed was a statement she made following the Merced trial. The DA there had said that it was criminal, and she had said, I don't remember the exact thing, but something about how we're not intending to stop because we don't believe it's criminal. And so they want to bring in as many pieces as they can.
Let me pause you for a second, and I'm going to play for our expert panel what the defendant herself, Zoe Rosenberg, said. And basically, she said the prosecution's case has gotten very weird. Listen.
We didn't get through much content because halfway through Deputy Arvizo's testimony, the prosecutors disclosed that they wanted to have him introduce a whole array of social media posts that I've made over the years. So we spent the first hour of court outside of the presence of the jury, with the prosecutors reading through social media posts that I've made when I was 14 and 15. One of my prosecutors was reading through these posts with passion in his voice, acting as though, I was threatening people with violence or doing something really egregious. But he was saying things like, she wants animal sanctuaries.
So I just find that kind of humorous. Renee King Sonnen, you run an animal sanctuary. You used to be a cattle rancher. Now you're a vegan sanctuary owner. What do you make of the fact, are they trying to criminalize veganism and sanctuaries?
I absolutely think they are trying to villainize sanctuaries, vegans. They're trying to portray us as crazy, that we don't have any credibility. And I could just hear in Zoe's voice when she was talking about how they were talking, using all this, this enthusiasm and passion in their voice to really vilify, Zoe. The fact that they're going into her social media back when she was 14 years old is, they're like scrambling, aren't they?
So what you're saying, Renee, is that it sounds a little desperate?
Unbelievably desperate. We used to be a cattle ranch, and I know, just from the way it used to be with us, how, this is a protective bubble they're in. These folks, I was just on an interview earlier. When you go to these sale barns, it is the good old boy mentality. You don't mess with that. And, we are knocking on the door of messing with that. And, they're going to do whatever they can to sanctify their holy grounds.
I think you're making an incredible point. I know that Cassie King is close to Matthew. I'm hoping maybe you could walk over and try to join Matthew's live. And Matthew, you could just explain the questions that we're asking, because I think you're going to get a better signal. So thank you. And you get to see behind the curtain. You'll have to jump off yes. So you'll just hear, Matthew, our question, and then ask Cassie to answer that question. But while she's walking over, what I'd like to do, oh, there she is. Okay. So come a little bit closer, Cassie. Thank you so much for that. Our question to you is, this seems more like the prosecution is trying to put veganism and animal rights on trial in general, as opposed to what Zoe did in specific. We've heard that the prosecution was asking potential jurors if they're vegan or they know any vegans, and then using their peremptory challenge to get rid of those people. Your thoughts on that, and if you could explain that, Matthew.
Sure. So she can just relate it to me, and then I can say it to you. So she was saying the prosecution seems to be trying to broaden the idea of what's on trial from specifically Zoe and her actions to the broad idea of Zoe and her whole set of beliefs, and what your response is to that.
Yeah, after hearing what they wanted me to speak about, some social media statements that I've made, or statements I've made in another trial, where, by the way, people were acquitted for rescuing chickens from a slaughter truck. So pretty similar to this case. I would agree with that. It seems like they're trying to bring in a lot of social media statements from me, from Zoe when she was a child, things that just are completely not relevant to the very public facts of what happened in this rescue. And it seems like, again, they're very focused on beliefs and just animal rights in general rather than the actual facts of the case.
Well, thank you so much for stopping, Cassie. I appreciate you and Matthew being there live at the scene. I want to bring in our attorney, Justine Block. I mean, it's not a crime to be a vegan. You cannot criminalize people who are vegan. If anything, we can make an argument, as a vegan myself, 600 gallons of water per day I save by being vegan. My carbon footprint is much lower. I could make a very good argument that I'm healthier than the vast majority of people my age. I'm doing less to contribute to climate change, habitat destruction, wildlife extinction, human world hunger, human disease. So why are they demonizing animal agriculture in general? Unmute. There you go. You got it.
What's going on here, in my view, from what you've presented so far and what we've seen in the trial, all the way from the prosecution using peremptory challenges to get vegans off the jury, to their opening statements, to what we're talking about here about is this weird with bringing up these old social media posts from when Zoe was a tween. It is going to their bigger picture of framing the general belief system of Zoe. They're framing the defendant as going after the animal ag, that they have to prove their case. They have to prove the elements of the charges against her. And for the trespass misdemeanor charges, the trespass is related to property rights with the intention, where the defendant has the intention of interfering with, obstructing, or injuring a lawful business and occupation. So they're focused on the whether she is interfering with the business, and what the defense is trying to do is no, you're not. You're going down this too big, broad belief system to get to this specific element and the specific intent. So with proving the case, the prosecution has to prove the actions and the state of mind when there's an intent element to a crime. And the defense is saying, no, this is the narrow intent is that she intended to rescue these chickens that were sick and injured. So they're trying to narrow it. Defense is trying to narrow this to deal with the specific intent that Zoe had at the time of these alleged crimes, and the prosecution, while they're presenting their case now, is trying to broaden it and make it more general. So you're seeing this conflict.
Yes, and the Purdue Rescue Trial X feed, which is run by Direct Action Everywhere, for which Zoe Rosenberg is an animal cruelty investigator. They're saying that the defense is saying that the prosecution is leaning too hard into Zoe's general beliefs rather than her specific intent. The judge says animal rights are very important in this case. That's a quote. And that a lot of their argument is appropriate, and maybe even more so once Zoe testifies. The defense attorney, Caraway, says it's not an issue thus far and wants to know there's a limit in how broadly the prosecution can go into Zoe's generally deeply held beliefs, especially given that they meet the qualifications for a religious belief, which is not allowed to be used as evidence of wrongdoing. So I want to bring in our other panelist, Lindsay Baker. You're a vegan. Does that make you a criminal?
It almost seems like it, doesn't it? I mean, I think what the prosecutor is working on, in my opinion, is trying to prejudice the jury, trying to show us as a bunch of wackadoos with a very narrow mindset, almost like they would look at a religion, but not a true religion, whatever that may be, whatever that means to anyone. But, sort of like one of those things where you follow somebody like Jimmy Jones down a, rabbit hole. I mean, I think that's really what he's trying to do, is make us seem like the oddball out. I have someone very close to me who is not vegan, and we constantly conflict about, he's telling me what a low percentage of the total population is vegan as a justification to continue to eat meat. Like, you're the cuckoo bird and the rest of us are normal. That's what I think the prosecution is trying to do right now. But I do want to just add one thing. I'm really positive because we have 3 big wins. One, that Cassie King is now back to her, can do her job, and she's amazing at it. 2, they showed the images. And 3, the media coverage has given us a great buzzword to use. So I'm really, optimistic, cautiously optimistic.
Wow. Well, this is great. Again, we're so sorry, Cassie, that you have to lean right into the camera to talk. We're going to see a close-up, but you're young enough to handle that close-up. So scooch on toward the camera and toward Matthew. Is this simply a case of the defense and Zoe Rosenberg, and by extension, Direct Action Everywhere, is trying to put animal agriculture on trial, and the prosecution is trying to put veganism on trial?
She's asking, is this a case of the defense trying to put animal ag on trial and the prosecution trying to put veganism on trial?
Some of the press that we've gotten recently has commented on that fact. I mean, the SF Chronicle piece that you mentioned earlier, Jane, about the opening statements on Monday, if that's what it was, they were saying that even though Zoe Rosenberg is the defendant and is the one supposedly on trial, that already from the opening statements, you could tell that this case was really going to be putting the slaughtering industry on trial, and people are going to be learning a lot throughout the process. The jury, the attorneys, the judge, the public, people are certainly learning some of the unsavory details about what exactly chickens experience, and the parts that are normal procedure and the parts that are illegal animal cruelty and yet continue to happen because no one's stopping it, like animals being boiled alive.
Yeah, that's a big issue. Were animals boiled alive? Are animals boiled alive? I want to say, and we invite the company involved on any time. They have a website that says that they have high animal welfare standards. You can go look at it if you want, corporate.purduefarms.com/responsibility/animal care. And their statement is that they're a leader in animal welfare, and they deny the cruelty allegations, calling DxE a radical group with the agenda to end animal agriculture. And on that, I think everybody can agree. Essentially, this, if you boil it down, the court, the prosecution, the police, and by extension, most of the media treats animal agriculture as an essential industry. And on the other side, in this David and Goliath battle, there are vegans, animal activists, and others who are saying, no, it's not an essential industry. It's a destructive industry. And yes, it should end. And so that is the epic battle. But within that battle, there is this specific battle where this young woman has put her own life on the line. She faces up to half a decade behind bars, and she has a lifelong illness from childhood. And she says going to jail could mean it's a life or death situation. So ultimately, Zoe Rosenberg is putting her life on the line to make this case that animal agriculture is a destructive industry, not an essential industry. I want to bring in Tiffany Brunelli, who is a former law enforcement investigator turned Direct Action Everywhere member. Your thoughts as you're listening to all this?
Yes, Jane, thank you. And I'm also following the Twitter feed. I don't know if I can give an update for a second on what seems to be going on in court.
Go ahead. I thought court was at lunch right now, and it starts back at 1:30.
Well, it says 6 minutes ago, but it looks like Little, one of Zoe's attorneys, is really doing a good job on cross-examination of the responding officer on the 11th or 12th that responded to the so-called break-in. And he's really asking were you aware of Zoe's complaints to the Petaluma Police Department previously about animal cruelty? No. Did you check the chickens when you were at the slaughterhouse? No. Did you notice that there was 4,000 chickens in one truck? No. You didn't look into the trucks and interact with the chickens? No, not at all. So it seems like he's really scoring a lot of great points. Zoe's attorney Little. He was also the attorney that represented Alexander Paul, the defense, and Alicia
Santurio. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
That's another point. One of the defenses that Zoe Rosenberg wanted to bring in was the necessity defense. She has said she tried many, many times to report what she calls criminal animal cruelty, including allegations she made of chickens being boiled alive to authorities, and they did not investigate. So here's what's really interesting. And maybe I'll go back to Renee on this. This is a prosecution witness, correct me if I'm wrong, a cop who was there. And what the defense is doing is using that cop to explain that no, law enforcement never did check out any of the allegations of animal cruelty. Imagine if you used a child as opposed to a chicken, and there was somebody who kept reporting, my neighbor is beating up his child. My neighbor has stuck his child in a shed. My neighbor is boiling this child alive, and the authorities don't investigate. Then this person says, I'm going in to get that child. That, of course, is not the argument that they can make, because there's a huge legal difference between animals and human children in a court of law. But the idea is there. Renee.
Yeah, animals, human children, and dogs. If Zoe had rescued 4 dogs from a burning house, she'd be a hero. But because they're chickens, she's a felon. We are watching compassion itself, in my opinion, go on trial. She saved 4 chickens, and they want to cage her for half a freaking decade. They want to put her behind bars for saving 4 chickens. So who's really the criminal here? When you're reading a 14-year-old social media post in a felony trial, you've officially run out of evidence. Come on. What? That blows my mind. This isn't really a criminal case anymore in my mind. It's a character roast of a child, of a kid. She was a kid back then who grew up to be an activist for animals that she loves, for animals that are being cruelly treated behind these closed doors. And the fact that they are calling it a chicken rescue trial is so awesome. That one word just changes everything.
And you're referring to the coverage in the mainstream media, every single one. Except for the Press Democrat, but Yahoo News called it the chicken rescue trial. The Mercury News said activists are criminal, but San Francisco Chronicle, the biggest paper, said chicken rescue trial begins. So that is a victory. Let me just say this. I find the way this case is going to be, it seems like a slam dunk for the prosecution, right? Oh, let's see here. We have a video of the defendant actually doing what she's accused of doing, which is taking these 4 chickens, except that she's the one, along with Direct Action Everywhere, who videotaped themselves. And then she and Direct Action Everywhere, the animal rights group she works for, disseminated this video. So it's not a whodunit. It's a why done it. And that's what the defense has said from the very beginning. And I'll tell you that really, really poses a challenge to the prosecution. Because normally the prosecution is very involved in proving, well, did this person do what they were accused of doing? And in this case, the video supplied by the defense itself says, yes, but we're offering a completely different interpretation of what's happening here. It's not a theft, it's a rescue, says the defense, and says it has evidence to show that the 4 chickens that Zoe Rosenberg took were indeed 6. So why is that a challenge for the prosecution? Let me explain it this way. I covered the Jodi Arias trial. And for a long time, Jodi Arias claimed that she did not kill her ex-boyfriend, Travis Alexander. And so the police kept gathering evidence and evidence and evidence that she was there that night. She was there that night. She was there that night. And then just before trial was supposed to start, or, close to trial, Jodi Arias and her defense team said, you know what? We were there that night. That essentially threw all the evidence that the prosecution had gathered out the window, because she's saying, yeah, I was there. So then they had to completely refocus their case to prove premeditation, that she had planned to be there. And the way they did that was the prosecutor went through hundreds of hours of interviews and found evidence that she had called an ex-boyfriend to borrow some gas cans. And that proved premeditation because she borrowed the gas cans. Prosecution was able to successfully argue in order that she could fill up and never be caught on a surveillance camera driving to her ex-boyfriend's house. So she had the gas cans with the gas. She didn't. But that was a stroke of genius, that he found that one little evidence that was hidden in hundreds of hours of interview. Because other than that, she'd already said, yes, I was there, but it was self-defense. So these are the kinds of things that it's an elaborate chess game. So the fact that Zoe Rosenberg and her defense team aren't saying, no, we weren't there. They're saying, yes, we were there. We videotaped ourselves. We put it out to the world because we want to tell the world what's going on behind closed doors in these factory farms. It makes the prosecution's case harder. And, let's get to former law enforcement investigator turned activist, Tiffany. What do you say to that? You're a former law enforcement investigator.
Yes, and I did investigate cases of child abuse, physical and sexual. And there's no way, I just can't even imagine. I just love how Zoe's attorney is really getting in there. And he's saying, did you even look at the chickens? To the responding officer, did you even look in the truck? Did you review? I can't imagine responding to an allegation of child abuse and not looking at the file and saying, oh, there's been 10 prior complaints in the past 5 years. He knows nothing about all the complaints that Zoe made. There's even one point where Zoe's attorney asked, did you notice the color of the chicken's hearts in the awful, or I don't know how to pronounce it, rooms pile where they have the dead chickens? He said, yes, I can see that they're red and pink. Do you have any experience investigating cruelty at a slaughterhouse? No. When you entered the slaughterhouse, did you look into any possible criminal animal cruelty happening there? No, I walked in and only saw one truck loaded with animals, 1 or 2 trucks. He didn't even have any idea that the truck contained approximately 4,000 chickens. So I really think Zoe's attorney is doing an excellent job. I just can't imagine responding to a call and not looking around to see what's going on. Or in my case, it would be, are any other children being abused? In this case, it's animals, but it's really painting the picture that the responding officer didn't do anything to look at the chicken's welfare or even really look around.
And that relates to something else that the defendant, Zoe Rosenberg, said about some earlier testimony. There was a representative of the company. And again, we always invite the company on anytime. We would love to dialogue with you. We'd love you to come on. But a representative from the company took the stand in the prosecution's case. And, well, let's hear from Zoe Rosenberg, and she's the defendant, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
So we heard testimony from the head of cybersecurity at Purdue Foods. He alleges that somebody accessed the computers at the slaughterhouse without authorization and emailed documents out. Honestly, his whole testimony felt a bit like a waste of time because I genuinely did not do that. And upon cross-examination, we learned that despite being the head of cybersecurity, he does not know who did that either. He also got into a weird back and forth with my attorney where he was saying that he doesn't consider Petaluma Poultry to be a slaughterhouse. I think maybe he doesn't like the negative connotation of that word because he barely even wanted to acknowledge the fact that chickens are slaughtered at Petaluma Poultry.
So I think that is very revealing. And, you know, it reflects the entire societal attitude toward factory farming in general, where 99% of all the animals that are consumed by humans are produced. So the other battle is, you know, is Sonoma County, which is in this genteel area of Northern California, an exception to the rule? Because, for example, a brochure was put out to all of, it seems, most or a large percentage of the folks in Sonoma County, saying basically stand with the county's poultry workers and painting a bucolic picture of what happens at these farms. And Direct Action Everywhere did some kind of reverse engineered check on the photos and said they're not even from the United States. So they're just generic photos that were grabbed and put up there. So, you know, to me, the idea that the witness on the stand doesn't like the word slaughterhouse. This is part of a larger societal picture where it's like some suffering doesn't count. And you know what they say, the basis of all evil in general is when people decide some suffering doesn't count, whether it's people of another background, whether it's women, whether it's children. Once you decide, well, their suffering doesn't count, then you're essentially giving yourself a pass. And the way you do that is by using terminology, okay, that doesn't paint a picture of what's happening. So when people eat pigs, they say they're eating pork or they're eating bacon. They don't want to really look at the fact that there is an animal that suffered a horrible life and experienced a terrible death. And Americans eat approximately 66 pounds of pork per year per person. So there's a lot of pig eating going on, but people are not looking at it that way. So indeed, in many ways, animal agriculture is on trial here. Renee, do you think that because they did offer Zoe plea bargain numerous times, just like they've offered the other defendants plea bargains and they were turned down, most of them turned it down. There were a few who did take plea bargains. But do you feel that there's any regret over this?
Well, I believe that the prosecution has to be regretting the fact when you really look at the big picture. Because when the mainstream media is now calling this a rescue trial, that's a big win for us. You know, because the narrative now is centering around rescue. I mean, yeah, I think they ought to be doing some regretting. I think it's going to backfire because the world at large can come to Unchained TV. Or other places on social media where they're showing this footage. You know, the world is seeing the footage. The jurors may not be able to see it, but others can. So it's being, you know, it's being framed this way. I mean, come on, historic trials where activists were criminalized by ultimately vindicating, where they were ultimately vindicated in the court of public opinion. I mean, this has happened many, many times. And every single time a headline like this of chicken rescue is put out there, it's going to shift our culture. It's going to shift the way people are looking at this. It's not going to be looked at like a theft. And perception is everything. The world is watching a trial over chickens and questioning the system that treats rescuers as criminals while factory farms are hiding behind corporate walls. Yeah.
Again, we invite that company on anytime. And, you know, what I've said many times is do your own research. There's their website. You can check it out at any time. And then there's also other websites, for example, PurdueAbuse.com on the other side. So there's the defendant with an attorney and a bunch of supporters, and they have PurdueAbuse.com, and the company has corporate.purduefarms.com/responsibility/animal-care. So we urge people to do their own due diligence and go in there and go online and look at the big picture. Lindsay Baker, what I notice about these big cases, and frankly, this has become a celebrity trial when it's getting that many headlines. It's not just a regular trial anymore. Well, let's face it. It's week 4 of this trial. It's day 14, and the prosecution's case has barely begun. I personally have covered murder trials that have been human murder trials that have been done in less time. The fact that this is moving at a glacial pace, the fact that everything is being argued over, which is a hallmark of a celebrity case. You know, when I used to cover trials for a living, I would go into court and I'd get there early and I would see one case after another of a poor person generally who had a public defender for an attorney, and their cases were decided like that. Boom, 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 boom. They barely got a chance to say a word in edgewise. Off they went to serve their time. And then the celebrity case that I was there for would come in and everything slows down because you have high-powered lawyers or very good lawyers on either side. I mean, you've had the district attorney really looking at this case very, very closely. The Sonoma County district attorney, the very person that Zoe Rosenberg and her team have been trying to get to investigate the allegations that they've made of animal cruelty at a variety of factory farms in Sonoma County. So you have a top flight team on one side, and you also have very good attorneys on Zoe Rosenberg's side. And then you have a highly controversial case. So this has become a celebrity trial. And one of the things I know about covering major celebrity trials, because I've covered many of them, is that they are runaway freight trains, and you never know what's going to happen. There is no way to predict the outcome of something like this. There really isn't. She was arrested in November of 2023. I mean, this has been going on for 2 years. And now the trial itself has been going on for 4 weeks, and we're barely into testimony. What does that tell you, Tiffany Brunelli?
Yeah, I was on set on a selection for a murder trial. I wasn't selected, but I don't even think the jury selection took as long as this took. And Jane, I'm kind of the Twitter X monitor.
Yes.
And I do want to add that, wow, the prosecution is continuing to object to Zoe's attorney's questions of the responding officer, and the judge is not going for it. And that he's letting Zoe's attorney continue to ask the questions. He's overruling it. And I do want to add, this is from Tuesday. I do want to say that I think that this judge is taking this very seriously. According to this case, according to the Purdue Rescue Trial Twitter account, Zoe's attorney makes a general argument that the prosecution is leaning too hard into Zoe's general beliefs rather than her specific intent. The judge then says that animal rights are very important in this case. And but he does say, and that a lot of their argument is appropriate and may become even more relevant once Zoe testifies. But then he goes on later, the judge says, he notes that this is one of the most tricky cases he's handled, and says to both sides that he will rule as best he can. So I'm getting the feeling that the judge knows that he's taking this more seriously than just 4 chickens supposedly rescued. I think he knows that this has broader consequences.
It does have very broad consequences, which is why UnchainedTV has committed to cover this every single day. We're going to be back tomorrow. Remember, Wednesday's court is dark. Lindsay, I want to get your thoughts. We've gone through a lot today, and I'd love to get your big picture thought on where we are in this case.
Well, I just want to go back to say that I think we're in a very good position And the reason I think that is it's already proven, in my opinion, it's already obvious, let's say, it's already obvious to any person of intellect that would be on a jury that what Purdue, and this is me saying this, not the network, what Purdue is putting on their website as animals being treated humanely is so obviously shown not to be the case right there. And that's the crux of why Zoe went in and took that action, because she had no other way to show the public and the police, the authorities, everyone. She had no way to show what was going on in there. She had no choice. This was the only way. And once that's proven, they can't help but find her innocent. That's my opinion. And one more thing, the fact that the policeman did not check out anything, to me shows that he, and I can't prove this, but it shows that he had already been talked to. This is what you do. You go in there, you stop what she's doing. You don't have to worry about anything else, because he didn't check anything else. So we'd have to ask Tiffany if that could be true or not, but I was just wondering.
Your thoughts, Tiffany?
Yeah, I mean, the cross-examination of the responding officer by Zoe's attorney, it goes on and on and on. And he never, it doesn't even he looked, it doesn't even appear he looked at anything. And they keep they asked him, they even asked him, Zoe's attorney asked, during your time at the Sonoma County Sheriff's Office, did you know if they ever did anything about all her prior complaints? He said, I'm not able to respond. He obviously, he didn't even bother to do any research before, a quick computer search before he went out there.
Well, this is a fascinating development. Again, we started our case asking the question, is the prosecution's case getting weird? And the reason I asked that is they subpoenaed Cassie King along with Paul Picklesheimer, and I'll show their faces again. And then lickety split, they unsubpoenaed them, or at least unsubpoenaed Cassie. Paul Picklesheimer is still subpoenaed. He was at the location that night, but we saw him because we were there outside organizing the protesters who were protesting very legally outside the facility. So that's one weird aspect. And the other weird aspect is of the prosecution's case that they're reading outside the jury's presence. So the jury is excused and the prosecution is reading Zoe Rosenberg's tweets from when she was 14 or 15. She's 23 now. So, I mean, that's when I said that's strange. First of all, if you're a juror, you have to go out there and then you have to sit in a holding area and wait without being part of the trial because this argument is happening outside of the jury's presence. So you heard Zoe saying that he's reading this in a very dramatic fashion. You know, posts that she made when she was 15 talking about animal sanctuaries. Well, first of all, I think it's important to point out that Zoe Rosenberg does run an animal sanctuary called the Happy Hen Animal Sanctuary. And she created this sanctuary when she was just 11 years old with the help of her mother, who is a veterinarian, who was also a witness in this case. There you have the Happy Hen Animal Sanctuary. So the fact that she's tweeting about creating sanctuaries when she's 14, well, gee, she had already created one. If anything, that shows she's a very, wow, you know, at the age of 14, what were we doing, right? I wasn't creating an animal sanctuary or doing anything like that. So, all right, I think we've covered this. If we want to do quick closing statements for today, we will be back tomorrow. And I believe we'll be back either at 12:30 p.m. Pacific or 1 p.m. Pacific. It's very hard to tell because one of the other things, the judge keeps changing the times for the trial. So, you know, we want to have just a one time. We're always going to be here at this time. But Sometimes they'll say trial begins at 11. Sometimes they'll say it starts at 1:30. But definitely between 1:30 and 2, you will see us. So please follow this, share out. Final thoughts, starting with Renee.
Well, I just want to say, the weirdness just keeps getting weirder. I mean, this weirdness is revealing something much bigger. The state doesn't want to put animal cruelty on trial because they know they'd lose. So instead, they're trying to put Zoe, this, like you said, this girl that started out with a sanctuary at 11 years old, defending animals. So instead, they're putting her personality on trial. It's like a classic tactic. When you can't win on facts, you're going to distract with character assassination. But the more they stretch, the weirder they look.
All right. And Lindsay Baker, your final thought. And I'm going to go to you in a second. And
there we go.
Yeah.
I'm just, it's fascinating, everything that is going on. They're prosecuting someone, calling them an extremist. What is an extremely peaceful person? She's a peaceful extremist. I want everyone to be a peaceful extremist. There's no crime here. This is ridiculous. The whole case is ridiculous.
All right, Tiffany Brudelli.
I'm just feeling very hopeful today, Jane. I'm liking the judge's rulings today, and I'm liking that. I was reading that he squashed the gag order on Cassie. I'm feeling much more optimistic today, and I feel like, why is the prosecution bringing up stuff since Zoe's been 11 years old, yet the defense isn't allowed to use any of the animal cruelty videos from like the last 3 years, except for the rescue? So it's really, that part is really upside down to me. Also, like, you can talk about things she did when she was 11, but
we don't know. I don't know what the outcome of that was. He was reading that outside the jury's presence. I don't know if that's going to be in front of the jury. And one of the reasons I don't know that is because there's no cameras in the courtroom. And let me say, Unchained TV applied to be the pool camera. We were willing to send somebody up there to be inside the court every day, recording everything, and we were denied. And then they also denied photos inside the courtroom. So who knows? Maybe we have to get a sketch artist in there. All right, guys, listen, I want to thank everybody. Remember, Unchained TV is the only news organization providing daily coverage of this case. Please, we are a news and entertainment network for the compassionate, sustainable lifestyle, but we're not CNN or NBC or Fox News. We need your help to spread the word. Share this out, share this out, share this out, and comment, and join us tomorrow. Thank you so much. See you next time.